The Galactic Conservation Station orbited the dying star of Epsilon 7, a massive facility dedicated to preserving species from across the known universe. Among its countless habitats and research wings, Section K housed the most dangerous specimens, apex predators from worlds where survival meant violence, and violence meant dominance. Tessa Rowan had worked in Section K for 3 standard years, longer than any human before her. The other species, the cautious Velix with their chitinous armor, the ethereal Nor who observed from behind force fields, called her reckless. She called herself practical. Predators, she'd learned, respected strength and consistency more than fear and distance. The morning shift began like any other. Tessa keyed through the security protocols, her worn boots echoing against the metal grating as she entered the Carvax habitat. The Carvax were nightmare fuel for most species, 4-legged hunters from a death world, with obsidian scales, retractable claws that could shred titanium, and eyes that saw in spectrums no other species could perceive. Adults stood 7 feet at the shoulder. They'd never been successfully domesticated, never integrated into galactic society. Most facilities refused to house them at all, but Tessa had a way with them. "Morning, Shara," she called to the matriarch, who lay sprawled on a heated rock formation. The massive predator's tail flicked once, acknowledgement without interest. Good, peaceful. Tessa moved through her routine, checking water filtration, adjusting temperature zones, scanning for injuries or signs of distress. The Carvax watched her with their unsettling triple-pupiled eyes but made no moves. 3 years of consistency had earned her this, not trust exactly, but acceptance. She was calibrating the feeding dispenser when she felt it. A weight, sudden and surprisingly heavy, landed square on her back. Tessa froze. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to throw off whatever had attached itself to her. But 3 years in Section K had trained those instincts into something more useful: stillness. Slowly, carefully she turned her head. A Carvax cub, Vex, if she remembered the identification logs correctly, clung to her maintenance vest. Tiny claws hooked into the reinforced fabric. The cub couldn't have been more than 3 months old, still small enough to fit in Tessa's arms, but already equipped with the tools that made adult Carvax so lethal. His scales hadn't fully hardened yet, giving him an almost liquid appearance in the habitat's amber lighting. Vex chirped, a sound incongruous with what he'd grow into, and adjusted his position, settling more firmly against her spine. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Tessa muttered. Across the habitat, Shara raised her massive head, those predatory eyes fixed on Tessa with the intensity that had caused 2 Velix handlers to quit on the spot. The matriarch's lips pulled back slightly, revealing teeth designed to crush bones. Tessa's heart hammered, but she kept her breathing steady. This was a test. Everything with Carvax was a test. "He's fine," she said calmly, addressing Shara as she would any concerned parent. "I've got him. We're good." For 3 heartbeats, the habitat held its breath. Then Shara lowered her head and closed her eyes. Permission granted, or perhaps a challenge accepted. With Carvax, it was hard to tell the difference. Tessa had 7 hours left in her shift. She got back to work. The feeding dispenser didn't care that she had 20 pounds of apex predator clinging to her back. Neither did the water filtration system, which had developed an annoying rattle that needed addressing. Tessa moved through her tasks with measured steps, acutely aware of the small passenger who adjusted his grip with every motion. Vex seemed fascinated by everything. When she knelt to inspect a temperature regulator, he stretched his neck to peer over her shoulder, chirping at the blinking lights. When she climbed the maintenance ladder to check the habitat's atmospheric processors, his claws tightened reflexively, but he made no sound of distress. "Comfortable up there?" Tessa asked dryly as she recalibrated a sensor array. Vex responded by settling even more firmly against her, his body heat seeping through her vest. An hour into the shift, Dr. Zelmora, the station's Nor supervisor, appeared at the habitat's observation window. Their translucent forms shimmered with what Tessa had learned to recognize as concern. "Tessa Rowan," the translator rendered Zelmora's harmonic speech into flat standard. "Sensors indicate a juvenile Carvax has attached to you. Do you require extraction?" "Negative," Tessa replied, not breaking her stride as she hauled a container of enrichment items toward the habitat's far corner. "Situation's under control." The matriarch could perceive your burden as a threat to her offspring. Shara's fine. She gave permission. Humans have a concerning tendency to anthropomorphize predatory behavior. Tessa smiled tightly. And Nor have a concerning tendency to observe from a safe distance and call it research. I'm good, Doc. Zelmora's form flickered, the equivalent of a resigned sigh, and faded from the window. By the third hour, Tessa's back ached. By the fifth, her shoulders burned. Vex wasn't motionless. He shifted constantly, investigating her movements, sometimes climbing higher to perch on her shoulder, sometimes sliding lower to peer at what her hands were doing. His claws occasionally punctured the vest's outer layer, though never deeply enough to break skin. The other Carvax, the juveniles who were Vex's siblings, the subordinate adults watched with keen interest. This was unprecedented behavior. Carvax cubs didn't bond with other species. They barely tolerated their own kind outside immediate family. But Vex seemed content where he was. During her scheduled break, Tessa sat carefully on a bench, supporting Vex's weight with her arms. She could feel his rapid heartbeat against her back, the heat of him like carrying a small furnace. You know, she said quietly, your mom could kill me in about 3 seconds if she wanted to. Vex chirped and nuzzled against her neck. Yeah, I'm pretty fond of you too, kid. But this can't become a thing. Tomorrow you stay with your family. Even as she said it, Tessa knew the truth. She'd been chosen. For whatever reason, curiosity, instinct, or something humans didn't have words for, Vex had decided she was safe. Worth climbing on, worth trusting with his vulnerable juvenile self. In Section K, where every other species maintained careful distance from the predators they studied, that meant something. The final hours passed in familiar routine. Tessa completed her rounds, filed her reports, and double-checked every system. Through it all, Vex remained a constant warm weight, his presence becoming almost comfortable despite the physical strain. As the shift ended and the next handler arrived, a cautious Velix who stared wide-eyed at the tableau, Tessa approached Shara's resting area. The matriarch watched with those unsettling eyes as Tessa carefully knelt and waited. Vex seemed reluctant to leave, his claws tightening briefly. But at a low rumble from Shara, he released his grip and dropped gracefully to the ground. Scampering back to his mother's side, "See you tomorrow," Tessa said softly. As she left Section K, her back aching and her vest shredded, Dr. Zelmora intercepted her. That was highly irregular, the Nor observed. Tessa smiled, exhausted. Yeah, it was. Will you file an incident report? Nothing to report. Just another day with the Carvax. But as Tessa headed home, she could still feel the ghost of that weight on her back, and knew that tomorrow, Vex would probably be waiting to climb on again. Some bonds, she'd learned, transcended species even with predators.